I went to Rutgers and I was a philosophy major, and I've never given up that proclivity or penchant for curiosity, for different new ways of thinking and learning about the way things work. Hey folks, welcome to the channel. I'm Don. I'm taking a look for the first time on the channel at Sabine Hossenfelder. She's a German theoretical physicist. She's got a large following on YouTube. It just showed up in my feed. And she's a philosopher of science, and she's written books and all this stuff. But I don't know, it's kind of funny because there's like virtually no personality that exudes, and yet you can't stop watching her. And she says really good stuff like that makes you think. And that's what this is about. And this one is about, basically, does science tell us if God exists? So we're going to find out what she's got to say about this. And I take a look at any topic that relates, even in just some esoteric way, on theological ideas, so that we could discuss things here, sort of have a central place to discuss things, whether you believe in God, whether you don't, whether you're agnostic like me, you're not quite sure. You tend to lead toward the scientific reductionist view of things, but we can't disprove that the universe came from somewhere. Where'd the matter in the universe come from? Okay, that's a legitimate point. Well, then where'd God come from on the infinite regress? All these discussions are worth talking about. I went to Rutgers and I was a philosophy major, and I've never given up that proclivity or penchant for curiosity, for different new ways of thinking and learning about the way things work. So let's see what she's got to say.
Today we will talk about whether God exists. I know that some of you have been wondering what has happened to me that I go on about this, but I swear at the end of this video it will all make sense. First, of course, I have to be clear what kind of God I'm talking about. I'm talking about the old-fashioned personal God, the one who listens to prayers and who tells you how to be a good person and who sorts the good from the bad in afterlife and so on. Some variants of this God are in actual conflict with evidence. Say, if you believe that evolution does not happen or that praying cures cancer and so on. If you want to defend such beliefs, you are in the wrong channel. Goodbye. I will assume that you are here because you, as I, want to understand what we can learn from nature, so ignoring evidence is not an option. What we have then is a God who is consistent with all our observations, but who himself does not result in any additional observable consequences. If you want to explain observations, then the scientific theories of the day are the best you can do. Adding God on top does not make the theories any more useful. By useful, I mean concretely that a theory allows you to calculate patterns in data in a way that is quantifiably simpler than just collecting the data. Example, the standard model of particle physics. It allows you to calculate what happens in particle collisions at the Large Hadron Collider. Now, you can say, I take the standard model plus the hypothesis that it was made by God. But adding God does not simplify the calculations. So God is superfluous, not wrong, but unnecessary. Right. The scientific approach is then to prefer the standard model without God. This is, of course, nothing else but Occam's razor. You make a theory as simple as possible. Without this requirement, science just does not work, because you would be allowed to add all kinds of unnecessary clutter to your hypothesis. Now, as we discussed previously, scientists say that something exists if it is an element of a theory that is useful to explain observations. Right. The Higgs boson exists in this very sense, and so do black holes and gravitational waves. On the other hand, if something is not useful to explain observations, as is the case with God, science does not say it does not exist. Instead, it doesn't say anything about whether it exists or not.
This is Einstein, basically, where Einstein, he wanted to know how God revealed himself in the way in which the universe works, the laws and all that sort of stuff. Wasn't interested in the other stuff, but that's how a lot of folks scientists, if you will, or people who are fascinated and might even leave the door open for there may be a God somewhere, but it doesn't help us understand things in the physical or natural world. All right, let's see where she goes.
It cannot say anything because science is about what is observable. Personally, I'm not sure what sense it makes to postulate the existence of something that has no observable consequences, but it is certainly something you can believe in if you want to. It's just that science cannot say anything about it. So, as some of you have pointed out correctly, God could be said to exist in a different way than, say, elementary particles. Some have suggested to call it immaterial existence, but I find this misleading because space and time are also immaterial, but they do exist in the scientific sense. Some have suggested to call it non-physical existence, but this raises the impression that it has something to do with physics in particular, which is also misleading. What it really is a non-scientific type of existence, or let us just call it what it is. It's a religious type of existence. God exists in the religious way. An element of a hypothesis that does not result in observable consequences exists in the religious way. So here's my next homework assignment. Does the multiverse exist? I think most of you will understand now what I'm getting at here. If you are not sure just what the multiverse is, I have another video upcoming in a few hours that briefly summarizes what this is all about.
I might get to that. Yeah, I mean, she broke it down kind of succinctly, and I like the way she broke it down. I mean, I learn a lot when I watch these videos. I hadn't watched this one before. I'm watching it with you, many of you, for the first time. And I love these new perspectives, and they add information, things that I've got to consider. Sometimes they already agree with what I'm thinking. Sometimes they refine it. Sometimes they give me additional information, and sometimes they contradict it. Either way, it's information that I want, We're all works in progress, and if we acknowledge that, one, we might be wrong on anything that we think already. Two, our understanding of something might be incomplete, so we don't have to do a 180, but it just adds layers on top of a theory or some bit of understanding that we think we've already got. Great. I don't want to live in an echo chamber. Those are boring. I want the conflict. I don't always like it. Sometimes it's very unpleasant. In fact, 15 years ago, for about 10 years, I ran in pretty hardcore Christian circles, fundamentalist circles, you might say. And in rewriting the New Testament in my own words, it wasn't a translation because I don't speak Hebrew, Greek, or Aramaic. I worked off of 6 very different English translations. So I would call it a paraphrastic version. I was paraphrasing the Bible, New Testament, in my own words. And I was going in actually to do it to sort of prove a given thing. And I just thought that the group that I was running in wasn't making enough of Jesus. Okay. And without going into the whole thing, I did a video a while ago on a couple of them on this process that I underwent. But it took a year and a half to rewrite the entire New Testament. Then I rewrote it again. It actually showed me the exact opposite of what I was looking to prove, that the New Testament, I kept it refined there, was the Word of God, was dictated by God. So often in the New Testament did the writers say, I'm giving you my opinion, I'm giving you my words. Paul explicitly said, I, not the Lord, am telling you this. So when I saw that this wasn't dictation from God, we couldn't call it the Word of God any longer, then I said, well, this is people's best account of, or an account of what they thought they saw at the time. But then when I considered that the earliest letters referencing what was going on in the New Testament were Paul's, he hadn't even met Jesus except, his account of on his way to Damascus, where Jesus appeared to him from the sky on a long trip through the desert. It's like, okay, but that was 20 years later after Christ had died. So we've got a 20-year gap. And then the Gospels were written, John's was written roughly 80 to 100 years after Christ had died. So you look and you say, well, people are writing their accounts of things based on what was handed down from them that is not entirely reliable. So in any case, I started to look at the New Testament differently. The reason I pointed that out is that whether you're in theology, whether you're purely scientific and don't want the encumbrances that a theological perspective might place upon your field or your mindset, and just going along with Occam's razor, which is that the fewest number of terms is generally the preferred explanation, that no matter where we're at, allowing ourselves to be challenged will open the doors to seeing things in a way that may be more consistent with what we might want to see anyway, even if we think we don't want it. So I like how she presented this. I do, and the multiverse is interesting. I'm going to do some more of her stuff. It's one of these things that the rubbernecking keeps coming to play. She says very good things, but a lot of people say good things, and I don't know why. I just keep watching her, even though she's definitely not an entertainer, but somehow she's entertaining. At the same time, she's presenting what she's presenting without distraction. It's just pure logic. It doesn't mean the logic is correct, sound, valid, but it's worth considering. So there you go, folks. Leave your comments. Thanks for playing along. Subscribe if you've made it this far. Thank you very much. Have a great day. See you on another video. Keep thinking. Theology or non-theology. It's all theological in that regard. Hey, folks. If you want to take the personality test that I created for my life coaching practice, which is based on the book that I wrote, put your phone up, turn it on camera, and focus on this, and it'll take you to it. And it'll take you about 20 minutes to complete the test. It's free, and you'll get some information on your personality. It's quite detailed, quite revealing. It's kind of fun as well. And I'll be leaving this QR code up on the wall behind me for my regular videos. So I hope you take it, and I hope you enjoy it.